Downing, and I'm a Babson undergraduate, 1980. There's my class right there, 1980. And just to give you an idea how long ago that was, this building was not here. It's been here a long time. So I'm an old guy. I run a business called CBD Please. We have a storefront in Alston, and we have a weak web presence, but that's not really my thing. I do most of the ordering that would be online ordering, I actually just do over the phone. And there's a few reasons for that. But one is I don't want to put an investment in the infrastructure that would be required in order to make online order processing actually safe. There's a lot of identity theft and stuff like that that goes on these days. In order to avoid having to deal with all that, I just do it over the phone. There's no security issues ever at all. But what I do is I offer every cannabinoid. That's the chemicals unique to the cannabis plant. But I do it faster, cheaper, and easier. Just like all my Babson friends. Fast, cheap, and easy. The only thing I don't do is THC. Okay? There's a lot of cannabinoids in cannabis. There's 86. There's more than 86 cannabinoids in cannabis, meaning chemicals unique, somewhat unique to the cannabis plant. The only ones that are outlawed here in Massachusetts are THC. THC is the only one that's outlawed. Now there's a couple of others that I'm not going to mess with because they happen to be mind-altering, like THCV. THCA can easily be made mind-altering, so I'm probably going to avoid those, for now anyway. But when we get a legal market, maybe I'll expand, who knows. But this is a beautiful business. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the aspects of the business, but just so you know, so I can inspire some of you to perhaps become partners of mine. The dispensaries will never be able to get close to my pricing on these products. The dispensaries, they may have 100,000 square feet of production space. They might have 200,000 square feet of production space. The people who manufacture my cannabinoids for me, they don't have thousands of acres. They have thousands of acres. They have what they call thousands of hectares of marijuana that they're growing in Europe. So my cost of goods sold on these cannabinoids is going to be much lower than the cost of goods sold for the cannabinoids produced by these dispensaries into the foreseeable future. And not just for my product, CBD, but for every cannabinoid other than THC, THCA, and THCV. So that's CBG, CBN, CBC, all the rest of them. And many of them have wonderful medical, have research showing that they may provide wonderful medical benefits to people. Now, this is my industry resume. It includes not only me as a experienced serial entrepreneur, but also as a cannabis tradesman, activist, and researcher. Just to make it short, I've been buying, selling, growing, smoking, bathing in cannabis ever since I was 15 years old. And I didn't stop when I came to Babson. And that's what this all said. I don't know, forget, I'm not going to read this. This is ridiculous. But I've also been an activist, too, not just a business person. For 25 years, I've been in MASS CANN NORML. I've been president for 14 years and an officer ever since I started. And right now, I happen to be the chairman. Not too slack. But I'm also the treasurer of Bay State Repeal. MASS CANN NORML is a public education organization. Bay State Repeal is a ballot initiative committee. And they intend to run a ballot initiative in 2016. They are one of two organizations that are going to be running a ballot initiative in 2016. The other is an organization called Committee to Regulate Marijuana like Alcohol in Massachusetts. And that committee is run by MPP, the Marijuana Policy Project. And they're big financiers of state legislation. They financed the decrim law that was passed here in 2008. So they know what they're doing. And they've got a lot of big money. Now, in January of 2013, the medical marijuana law was enacted, and I became a caregiver. Of course, before then, I had been a drug dealer. And now all of a sudden, instead of being a drug dealer, I was like a caregiver guy. I was legitimate. You know, I was selling pot to all the same people. It was just they happened to be medical patients now. This went very well. It started in January 2013. By June of 2013, I had about 300 patients. And then by June of 2014, I had 1,200 patients. And I had 5 full-time employees and 5 full-time contractors. I was delivering over 20 pounds of marijuana a week across the state. I had my offices in Austin where I did all my computer work and registering patients and all that stuff. And then I had a processing facility out in Worcester where I had 3 full-time employees who all they did all day long was weigh out bags of pot and put them into orders for drivers to come and pick up. And this was a big operation. We did very nicely. But then on June 26th, the Department of Public Health sent us a cease and desist order. And since I'd been registering all my patients with the Department of Health, they had all their names and addresses and everything. They sent each one of them a letter saying they could no longer use anti-caregivers. And that's because the Department of Public Health created a regulation saying that each caregiver can only care for 1 patient. It wasn't part of the law that we passed. Now this is a regulation. It's something that the Department of Public Health kind of made up on their own after the law had been passed. But basically it eliminated the caregiver function. If each caregiver can only have 1 patient, very few people are going to bother doing it. And that's what the Department of Health wanted. They wanted to get rid of the caregiver function. Probably the number 1 reason is because they can't really control it that well. When the Department of Public Health drew up their 45 pages of regulations to match the law, to go along with the law, the regulations treated cannabis, medical cannabis, as though it were plutonium. It treated it as though cannabis were the most dangerous substance on the face of the earth, as opposed to the safest therapeutic substance known to humans. So, talking about the cannabis industry, you can kind of think about it in different market sectors. Whoa, how did I do that? Maybe I did something by accident. Here, what did I do? Anyway, the oldest business sector and big business sector, of course, is the industrial hemp. There we go. Industrial hemp for fiber. And that's generally cannabis sativa. You don't use cannabis indica to make fiber because cannabis sativa grows very, very tall. Fiber for hemp plants for fiber often will grow 12 feet tall. Very, very tall. And also they send roots way down into the soil. They actually improve the soil down up to 10 feet into the soil by leaving root material there that rots year after year and enriches the soil. But it also yields the strongest, most UV-resistant natural fiber known to humans. And it's responsible as the content of over 10,000 currently commercial products. Now, another industrial product that comes from hemp is the hemp seed, which is useful as a food. It's very nutritionally rich, but also produces an oil that can be used for lightning oil. And in fact, was the premier lightning oil of the world, meaning if you had a lamp, it didn't run on kerosene, didn't run on whale oil, it ran on hemp oil until about 1820 when whale oil became the premier lightning product. And we see how well that's worked for us, huh? But both cannabis sativa and cannabis indica can be used to produce medicines. Even though sativa is an industrial fiber product which doesn't have a lot of THC in it, there is sativa that has plenty of THC in it. The sativas that come from tropical areas like Thailand, places like that, have lots and lots of THC in it, and are useful as medicine. Cannabis has been used to produce medicines for many thousands of years. And in fact, a DEA judge, when they were looking at the rescheduling of cannabis, studied it very carefully for a while and then declared that cannabis is actually the safest therapeutic substance known. I would extend that and I would say the safest therapeutic substance in the known universe. Right? Yeah, we know of no alien races that have better medicines than our cannabis. The very best. Then there is recreational marijuana, or recreational cannabis, where you get that word marijuana being used all of a sudden. But it's been known to be used as a recreational substance for many, many hundreds of years, many thousands of years. And a good example of this was the Roman historian Galen, who described the use of cannabis at Roman orgies. Imagine how fun that was. Cannabis, however, is a safer alternative to alcohol as far as recreational cannabis goes. I am a Northern European, mostly Irish, Scottish, British background. My family's been devastated by alcoholism. You know, I can't speak to your families, but I've got family members that have driven into trees. I have family members that have beaten up their wives and children. I have family members whose lives are entirely destroyed. I gotta put this thing down. Entirely destroyed by alcohol. So, man, oh man, do I know the cost of alcohol use in our society. And it is heavy. And there's nothing like that for cannabis. You know, I do have relatives that use cannabis, and they don't beat up their wives. They don't drive off the road into trees. It's a very, very different situation for cannabis than it is for alcohol. Now, there is another potential market, and that's the sacramental cannabis market. I'm not going to talk about that much because it's a tiny market. But there are people that believe that cannabis is a religious sacrament. And who's to tell them it's not? It's religion. It's a matter of opinion. You can believe anything you want for religion. It's just like superstition, isn't it? Now, industrial hemp has two basic things that it makes. It makes either the seed or it makes the stalk. Now, if you're making the seed, you can do a couple of things with it. You can either hull it, meaning you take the outside covering off the seed and use the meat from the inside of the seed. And if you do that, you can use that meat for food. In fact, it's one of the most wonderfully nutritious foods that humans know. Entire sections of human civilization have stayed alive on hemp seed meat. It's actually a complete protein. Very unusual in the vegetable world. But the shell, you know, you think, oh, well, the shell from the, you just throw that away, right? No. You can grind that up and you can make flour out of it. As they say, you know, you've heard probably through grade school many, many years, the Indian uses every part of the buffalo. You've probably heard that before, right? Well, now I'm telling you, the humpy uses every part of the cannabis plant. So, if you're not hulling the seed and making food or flour, you can press it, you can make food out of it that way, you can make oils out of it. The oil from hemp seed is very nutritious. It can also be used as a fuel. You can use it for making paints and for personal care products. It's wonderful because it's non-allergenic, generally recognized as non-allergenic. Very few things in nature are non-allergenic, but this is one of them. The stalk is usually decorticated, meaning that the fiber is pulled off the outside of the stalk, and then there's a core that goes down the center of the stalk, and that has uses as well. The fiber on the outside, tremendously useful for fabric, for insulation, for carpeting, for paneling, for cordage, for making pulp, and for as a recycling additive. And then you've got this kind of side product called tow. This is what they throw as garbage, but it can actually be used for cordage, bagging, and fiberboard. And then you've got the hurd, which is the woody core of the plant. And that has tremendous usefulness as well. It can be used for fiberboard, composite board, mortar in hempcrete. So if you combine fiber and mortar, you can make concrete out of cannabis plants. And it's a wonderful, wonderful product. It's much lighter, stronger. It beats concrete blocks by 1,000,000 miles. And also it makes absorbent bedding for animal bedding. And you can also make feedstock out of the cake for animals as well. You use a chemical feedstock from the herd to make plastics, as Henry Ford did when he made the Ford hemp car, paints, and for sealants. Okay, well, quick. I don't want to give you the whole history of hemp because that would take me hours and hours and hours. But suffice it to say, this is when evidence was found of hemp industry. Okay? So the oldest evidence we have of hemp industry is a 10,000-year-old piece of Chinese pottery where they had wrapped a hemp rope around the outside of the pottery. This does a bunch of things. Number one, it embeds hemp fibers into the ceramic. so that when they test it 10,000 years later, they can actually get the fibers out and say, oh yeah, it was hemp. So they can positively identify it. That's what makes this 10,000-year object so important. The other thing is, though, if you wrap hemp rope around a ceramic while it's still wet, then you're doing a few things. You're making an artistic pattern. The pattern of the rope kind of looks like a herringbone pattern. So it's artsy, right? But also it gives you grip. See the bumps it makes on the container? Isn't that a better grip than if it was just smooth? The answer is yes. Yes, Bill, you're right. Now that 10,000-year-old one, that was from China. That was a piece of pottery in China. This one I'm showing you right here is actually an amphora. And this is from the Mediterranean. And this is from many thousands of years later. So this is a persistent thing. Now another thing it tells us, if it's 10,000 years old and it has hemp rope wrapped around it, it means that they were making rope out of hemp 10,000 years ago. That's an industrial use of hemp, right? So that's what we're talking about here. The earliest evidence of the industrial use of hemp. Then we have cannabis inspiring agriculture. University of Columbia University in New York, they sent out teams of archaeologists, and one of their focuses was to find out what crops were so important to early humans that they inspired agriculture. The idea that not only do we hunt and gather and all that stuff, but we create permanent dwellings. We have permanent crops and all that kind of stuff. Without permanent crops, we would have remained hunter-gatherers. We would never have had modern civilization the way we know it. We would never have had the city-states. We would never have society as we know it. So one could say, since cannabis was identified as one of the dozen or so early first agricultural crops, one could say cannabis was so important to early humans that it inspired agriculture. And without agriculture, we would not be a civilized human population. Okay? So if it weren't for cannabis, we'd all be a bunch of prehistoric goobs. Got it? There is evidence that cannabis has been used as a food since 6000 BC. I don't have any pictures about that. 4000 BC, we have evidence of cannabis as a textile. Now we know it was used as a textile for many, many years before that. It's just the textiles don't tend to last too long in archaeological digs. Here is an archaeological dig with the textile in it, 4,000 years old, and it doesn't look like much, does it? It looks like a bunch of dirt. But if you go through that dirt and pull out all the little pieces of fabric, this is what you get. These little pieces of fabric. And they test these pieces of fabric and they do a chemical analysis and they say, oh, what do you know? This is marijuana. Ah! And then paper. Paper doesn't last very long at all, right? But we've got 100-year-old paper that's from hemp. Hemp is actually very good at making paper. It's very low acid. It lasts a long, long time. Another interesting thing I just want to briefly mention is this is a Korean battle outfit. All right? I told you before that hemp fiber is very strong. Well, here is armor made out of hemp. These guys are trying to stop arrows, spears, not guns, it's too old for guns, it's 700 BC, or AD. But anyway, or a sword strike, right? So this is just layers of hemp fabric laid crisscross over them very thickly. And it's going to stop an arrow. Well, yeah, it's a wonderful product for use in military applications. Now, one of the questions about the difference between hemp and marijuana is its cultivation. And if you're growing hemp for fiber, basically you're sowing the seeds about 4 inches apart. That's the standard for farming, 4 inches apart. Can you imagine trying to walk through this hemp field? You think it's hard walking through a cornfield? Try walking through a hemp field someday. You're not going to do it. You couldn't do it if you wanted to. The reason they sow it so closely is because they don't want branching. They want one thin, long stalk. They want it to go up as tall as it possibly can. So they're also crowded together. They've got a little top knot of leaves. And that top knot keeps going up and up and up and up. And that's all the leaf you have on the whole hemp plant, this little tiny top knot. And it can go up to 15 feet tall that way. Now, marijuana, of course, you grow very differently because you don't want to have fiber from marijuana. You want to have buds from marijuana. So you space the plants apart. You give each plant 10 feet in every direction from each other plant. So each plant has about 100 square feet of space. It's a little bit different than sowing it 4 inches apart, right? Now, there has been an argument that we can't allow this crop because it would be confused, because someone could put in marijuana and say it was hemp, and we wouldn't know the difference. Can you tell the difference between marijuana and hemp? I can. So this was a bogus argument. When marijuana was made illegal, hemp was made illegal, just because they happen to be cousins. It's kind of like they're both dogs. They're both cannabis plants. But you can have a dog that's a Chihuahua, right? You can have a dog that's a Great Dane, right? Well, that's kind of the difference between these plants. These are bred for very, very different purposes. Industrial hemp has been used as a maritime product since time immemorial. Columbus of Santa Maria, they came here and first discovered America, was laden with hemp. See all those sails? Those were all hemp. And look here, the USS Constitution, same thing. All the sailcloth, all the rigging, all the rope, the anchor rope, all the uniforms, everything paper, everything, all the maps, all the Bibles, the caulking between the boards so that water doesn't leak in. That was hemp fiber in that caulking mixed with tar. So the USS Constitution carried 60 tons of hemp. Do you think hemp was an important industrial product in the early colonies? Yes, Bill, it was. How important? Well, here in Boston, we had 4 hemp walks. What's a hemp walk? Well, you're making a rope. What you need to do is you need to twist it. You need to twist the fibers. And this map, by the way, was put together by that gentleman right there, a hempologist. And these red lines on the map, there's 4 of them, are the hemp walks in Boston in 1722. And basically you start at one end of the hemp walk, you tie your strands of rope up to it, you have a spinning wheel, either run by humans or a carousel run by horses, and it spins the rope. And as you move backwards, you get more and more spun, and then you can spin strands together to make thicker and thicker rope. And they made really big rope. The anchor rope for that USS Constitution I showed you before, that was 25 inches in diameter. That's a big rope, but you're holding a big ship, so you need a big rope. And this is what a hemp walk looks like from the inside. And that guy's smoking something. I don't know what he's smoking there. Yeah, so you got a spinning wheel, you got a guy walking backwards. The longer the shed, the longer the rope you make. So you want to have a really long shed, because you got a rope that's going to be on a ship, and it needs to be really long. You may have learned about the War of 1812 in grade school, but I bet you they didn't mention the word hemp when they taught you about the War of 1812. Guess what the War of 1812 was all about? It was all about hemp. Nothing else. Sorry, folks. No, it wasn't just British hating Americans and losing the revolution and all that stuff. No. It was all about hemp. The French had made an agreement with the Russians. The Russians refused to sell hemp to the British. The British needed hemp for their navy because it's the biggest, strongest navy in the world. The British freak out. They started illegally bringing black market hemp in from Russia. They start taking American merchant vessels, stealing American merchant vessels, and using those to bring black market hemp from Russia to England. And all of this caused huge tension. Of course, America and France were allies. The British and the French were getting it on. The British said, we're going to screw with your ally. They blocked all of America's ports. And they took over Washington, D.C. And they almost took over Baltimore. They were very close. They came like this close to taking over Baltimore, too. But then France stupidly invaded Russia, and Russia said, all right, your treaty is down the toilet. And the whole thing went down the tubes. The War of 1812 ended. But not only was marijuana depicted on $10 bills, here's a picture of bundling hemp in the field on a $10 bill. That's what used to be on our $10 bill, pictures of people bundling hemp. But not only was it printed on our money, but it actually was money. American tender. Do you know what that means? That means you could pay for things in hemp. You didn't need to have cash. It was actual tender. And not just for milk and eggs and lumber and hardware fixtures, but taxes. You want to pay your taxes, local, state, federal taxes? Sure, just bring us some bundles of hemp and you can pay your taxes in hemp. Isn't that cool? The Conestoga wagons that brought our settlers across the West, those covers on those wagons that saved so many settlers from those arrows from the Indians, those are marijuana. That's what that stuff is. It's canvas. Canvas is the Dutch pronunciation of the word cannabis. Every time you hear canvas, think pot. Now, what happened to the industrial hemp market? Well, a couple of things happened. But one of them was the invention of the cotton gin. In 1794, Eli Whitney, a schmatty from Yale University, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but down in New Haven, there's this little school. And what he did was he invented a machine that had hooks on a drum and a gate. And you could run the hooks through the gate, and it would pull the cotton through the gate, but it would leave the cotton seeds on the far side of the gate, because the gate was too narrow for the cotton seeds to pass through. So you were able to get the seeds out of the cotton boll with a mechanical process. Now this is just a living room version with a hand crank on it. Of course, on a real farm, you'd have a turnstile, and you'd have mules or horses or donkeys turning a turnstile, and the thing would be gigantic. And you'd be processing a whole bunch of cotton all at once. And this, of course, made cotton much cheaper to produce as a fiber than hemp. And this was in 1794. It wasn't until 100 years later, 1890 to 1919, all that time, in order to make hemp fiber, they used this hemp grape thing. And talk about heavy-duty manual labor, long time working there, bang, bang, bang. It took a long time and a lot of work to make hemp into fiber. We didn't have the cotton gin like cotton did for a long time. It didn't come along until 100 years later when there was a machine called a decorticator, which was invented. The most famous of these decorticators was made by a guy named Schlichten. And it automated the process of separating the hurd and the fiber from the hemp. And it would have made hemp far cheaper to produce than cotton. Far cheaper. This is what I'm talking about. This is the fiber on the outside of the hemp stalk. You see how it wraps around the core, the course, or the hurd, as they call it. And then this can be combed out and turned into a fiber. What's holding the fiber together and holds it to the stalk is a natural glue called lignin. So you can melt the lignin. The way they used to do it in the old days was rocking the hemp in the field, but with the decorticator, you could do it in an instant. Now, one of the things that was found was, primarily you're making hemp for fiber. And you think, wow, we're getting all this great fiber and we can sell it and we can make lots of money off this hemp stuff. And there was this other byproduct, the hemp hurd, the core from the plant. Well, we can use that for animal bedding. I guess we might get $1 for 1,000 pounds of it or something like that. It's not really worth much. Well, guess what? The U.S. government, Department of Agriculture, in what year was this? 1916, came out with this paper, and they found out, no, that stuff's valuable. Guess what? You think that may be a throwaway, a secondary product. But guess what? It's really valuable because we can use it to make paper. In fact, 1 acre of hemp can produce as much paper pulp as 5 acres of trees. That's what this study came out with. So, between the decorticator and the discovery of the usefulness of these secondary products, hemp was poised to become the new billion-dollar crop. This is in 1938, okay? So imagine what a billion-dollar crop would be in today's money. Right? Not in 1938 dollars, but in 2014 dollars, 2015 dollars. This is Popular Mechanics magazine. And there's the Schlichten decorticator. There's a big one. And you can see these are fibers hanging out from the end of the decorticator. And here's a pile of hemp hurds, a secondary product that can be made into paper. But they're showing you that hemp can make even the very finest materials. It's not just made for canvas and rope. It can also make beautiful clothing, high fashion clothing. And they knew this in 1938. And this article came out in 1938 saying, this is going to be a great new industry. We're going to get involved in this. It's going to make tons of money for farmers and people. Guess what? By the time this thing was published, hemp was already basically illegal. It was a publishing calendar problem. In 1937, the United States passed that tax that that we were talking about before, Chanel was talking about before, and it basically made impossible to grow hemp. It was too expensive to grow hemp. And so it made the product no longer a product. And that happened between the time that this article was written and the time that this article actually hit the shelves. It took them about 4 months was their production cycle for this magazine. And in the 4 months between the writing of the article and the publishing of the article, the magazine getting onto the shelves of the United States, it was made illegal. So by the time this article came out, the whole subject was moot. Now, that's just talking about hemp fiber. I'll just very rapidly talk about hemp seed. As I mentioned before, it's extremely nutritious. This is whole hemp seed. All right? This is the nutritious part of the hemp seed, this meat right there. Wonderful stuff. Boy, oh boy, is it good for you. And boy, oh boy, is it high in protein and stuff like that. How do you get from seed to meat? Well, you use a holophant. Of course. Don't you all know that? Yeah. A holophant is a hulling machine. And look at this thing. You know, you can put a lot of seed in there, and boy, oh boy, it's going to rip through it and turn it all into seed meat pretty damn quick. So these are automated processes nowadays. It may seem difficult for you and me sitting there pulling apart little seeds and getting the meat out, but you don't have to do it that way. You can use a machine instead. And once you've done that, once you've got the meat, all you need to do is press it together with a few other ingredients, and you can make cookies out of it. See that? That's just hemp seed meat pushed together with some other ingredients and made into a cookie, right? Or you can grind it up and make it into a flour, just like wheat flour or rye flour or any other kind of grain flour. And once you do that, you can make bread. You can make any other kind of bakery good you'd ever want to make with it. You can make. And you can also sprout it, just like you would sprouts from alfalfa or mung bean or anything else. And it makes a very nutritious, very valuable food product. You can make tea and you can make milk out of ground meat from the seeds. And how nutritious are they? They're extremely nutritious. I dare anyone to show me a nutritional profile from a plant, from any plant material. Maybe soybeans comes close. But this is the only thing in the world that's got a protein and an essential fatty acids profile like this. It's extremely valuable as a nutritional product. When we talk about amino acids, here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 amino acids. How many amino acids do you need for complete protein? 8, Bill. The answer is 8. We've got 9 here. They may not be the 9 that carnivores get from their meat, but there are 9 of the amino acids that make up protein. If you're going to come close to real protein from a plant product, this is about as close as you're going to get. Another aspect is the fatty acid profile. When we're talking about fatty acids, you know, and a lot of people don't know what that is, but they'll recognize this. Omega-9, omega-6, omega-3. These are what your doctors are telling you you need. If you've got a cholesterol problem, you need these omegas. Even if you don't, you need them. They're very, very, very good for you. And you could get them from fish, and you'll probably get a little bit of heavy metal mixed in with your fish oil. You might get some other pollutants mixed in with your fish oil. But you can do it from hemp seed. And there's not going to be any pollutants in your hemp seed, especially if it's grown properly. Hemp seed oil is also a lightning fuel. As I had mentioned to you before, it can be used for powering automobiles. In fact, here's Henry Ford's hemp car, which had a diesel engine in it that was able to run on hemp oil. Now also, you'll notice the body of this car. It looks like it's made out of sheet metal. It's not. It's actually made out of plastic. That plastic is made with those throwaway hemp herds, those things that we thought had no value. Well, you can make plastic out of that stuff. And there's a car made out of plastic right there by Henry Ford himself. But also, you can use the biomass of the hemp, and also the seed oil can be used for personal care products. And there are big lines of personal care products made with hemp seed oil. And again, they're non-allergenic. You can also use the biomass of the plant. Cannabis produces more biomass in a single growing season than almost any other plant on the face of the earth. Biomass can produce fuel oil, ethanol. And look, we're using a lot of corn for ethanol right now. Look at how much ethanol you get out of an acre of corn. And look at how much ethanol you get out of an acre of hemp. Why are we using corn? Because we're idiots. That's why. And not only can you get methanol, look, when you're breaking cannabis down through biomass, you can get charcoal, you can get fuel oils, and BTU gas as well. And how does this work? Well, there's this chemical, mechanical and chemical process. You take the plant, put it in a gasifier, gas cleaning, combustion chamber, and then it drives a turbine. And then once it's driven the turbine, you can do anything you want with it. It's creating electricity. You can just use the electricity, or you can make it into a heat exchanger and make it into steam, whatever you want. Also, another use for the hemp plant is, these are other uses that we found recently, is phytoremediation. You might not be familiar with the term phytoremediation, but basically if you've got polluted soil and you want to clean it up, you can use hemp plants to clean up polluted soil. Isn't this intense? Right? What happens is the pollutants in the soil are brought up into the plant. Some of them are oxidized through transpiration and respiration. Some of them are destroyed through photosynthesis. And some of them are just stored in the plant material. But either way, you're getting it out of the soil, right? Now, if you're storing all kinds of dangerous chemicals in the plant material, you don't want to go around smoking that pot, right? No. But you could put it into hempcrete, which turns it into a solid mass, which means that those dangerous chemicals don't re-enter the environment. So this is a means of getting rid of dangerous chemicals out of our soils. More recently, scientists have found that hemp is a better material than graphene for making batteries. This is incredible. Look at this, supercapacitors and regular batteries made with hemp fiber. The uses of this plant are just incredible and growing every day by leaps and bounds. Right now they say 10,000 commercial products. It's going to be 20,000. It's going to be 30,000. It's going to be 50,000. Believe me, it's coming. Now, cannabis as a medicine. We've been talking about seed and stalk and all that stuff. What about medicine? Cannabis has been around as a medicine for many thousands of years. Now, the evidence, the earliest evidence, is from this gentleman, the first emperor of China, Fu His, also known as Fu Si, depending on which source you look at, it's spelled differently. But anyway, he wrote extensively to the people of China about how cannabis was a medicine and an industrial product and to be used as part of a farm resource that's balanced as well with dairy farms and other things like that. Now, the reason they show this little turtle down here, just in case you ever wonder why they show the turtle, is because back in the old days, when he was around, they didn't use paper in China. They used the inside of turtle shells for writing them. So almost all of his advice that he was writing to the people of China was written on the inside of turtle shells. And that's why they showed the turtle in the corner of the picture. And whenever you see a picture of Fu Si or His, you'll always see the turtle. It's like his symbol, you know. Then, of course, went through many, many hundreds of years, thousands of years of people using cannabis as a medicine. And then here in the United States, we have people who are growing hemp. And it's well documented they're all growing hemp. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. But it's also pretty well documented that they were very interested in this other thing called Indian hemp. Now, the word for India in Greek is indica. And when Greeks were referring to indica, they were referring to the drug. They weren't referring to sativa, the hemp that everybody was using. They were referring to that drug that comes from India. So when these guys talk about Indian hemp, they're talking about marijuana, not industrial hemp. And Thomas Jefferson put his personal liberty at great jeopardy to smuggle Indian hemp seeds, drug marijuana seeds, to the United States. And he did it personally. He carried seeds from France to the United States. And it was illegal. He could have been arrested and thrown in jail and all that stuff. But he didn't. He got away with it. He was a pot smuggler. And he brought the seeds back for many people, including his good buddy George Washington, who said to his gardener, hey, let's sow it everywhere. And he wasn't talking about sativa. He was talking about Indian hemp seed, marijuana. Also, he said in his diary, sowed hemp at Muddy Hole by Swamp, August 7th, and then on, I believe it was May, he said sowed hemp, And then in August, he said, began to separate males from females from males at due, rather too late. What is he talking about, separating males? Why would George Washington want to separate the males from the females? I don't know. Oh, maybe I do know. There's this stuff called sensimilla. And that's a Spanish word. It means sons, means without. Semilla means seeds, without seeds. So how do you make pot plants without seeds? Well, you just don't fertilize them. And what happens if you have a whole bunch of female unfertilized pot plants? Late in the season, they realize they're not getting fertilized, and they go nuts. They start producing giant buds, really oily, sticky, giant buds. It's called sensimilla. It's a very drug form of marijuana, and that's what George Washington was trying to get. Pharmaceutical grade cannabis extract, otherwise known as hash oil, right? Was one of the top 3 most frequently prescribed medicines in the United States between 1840 and the 1890s, with never a single documented overdose and never a single documented case of addiction. How could that be? Hash oil being prescribed to millions of Americans and never a problem? Well, that's the way it was, sorry. And it was made by Park Davis, giant pharmaceutical company. I think they're part of Eli Lilly now. But they were a big, big drug company. And here's, they say, nowadays doctors say, oh, we don't know if it's safe as a medicine, and I don't know how to dose it out because it's a plant. Well, for decades and decades, they used it as a safe medicine, and they dosed it out properly. What, did we become really dumb all of a sudden? Apparently our medical establishment did become really dumb all of a sudden. It had a lot to do not with medicine, but with politics. Isn't that nice, huh? Talking about politics, this is the way the federal government sees marijuana. They schedule all the drugs into various schedules, with the Schedule 1 being the most restrictive. And you get out on Schedule 1 only if you're very highly addictive and you have no potential medical use. Here's cannabis. It's on Schedule 1. See, it's in red, along with heroin and GBH. But this chart shows us how toxic these substances are. And though cannabis is the very least toxic substance, in fact could be argued non-toxic substance, it is in the highest schedule. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense on the surface until you think of the politics behind the situation. And then you understand why this happened the way it happened. Now this number here, 1 to 20,000, just to explain it, means the effective dose, 1, is about 1/20,000th the toxic dose. So you would have to consume 20,000 standard doses in order to get near the toxic dose level. Now this is a number that's provided by the federal government. The actual number is 40,000. And again, projected, because nobody's ever reached it. And there's no way to test it and find out. So they say, oh, well, if you think things out mathematically, yeah, it's about 20,000, 40,000. I don't know, it's an awful lot. But if there's anything that's non-toxic, it's cannabis.
5 minutes, Phil.
Oh man, I got a boogie. Massachusetts passed almost unanimously. See that pink mark right there that's supposed to be a negative vote? That was a mistake by the Boston Globe. The other pink mark, the city of Lawrence up there, that actually did go against medical cannabis. But Lawrence has got a lot of big drug problems. Why do the people of Massachusetts want to allow cannabis? Well, here's a chart that shows where research is showing that cannabis may have positive medical effects. And look at all these issues that it has could potentially positively help. Analgesia, inflammatory, insomnia, anxiety, depression, spasming. That's only half of it. Here's the other half. Eating disorders, all kinds of stuff. Diabetes, psoriasis, cancer. Look at that. It inhibits tumor cell growth. Holy cow. There's more and more evidence that cannabis is useful as a medicine in cancer. There are many products that can be made from the cannabis for the retail market. It includes not only flowers and fresh leaves, but concentrates. You may have clean concentrates like bubble hash, sifted hash, or rub hash, charos. Or you can have dirty concentrates that are made with chemicals like acetone, like Rick Simpson oil, or butane, BHO, butane honey oil, alcohol, xylene, toluene, and you can reprocess things more than once. So if you have hash and you want to make butter or wax or shatter, you can just reprocess it again. And then there's all the other cannabinoids, like I mentioned, I'm going to be selling. You are going to need contact management databases. This is the contact management database that I used for Yankee caregivers. And there's a lot of features to this that I talk about, but I'm running out of time. You're going to have to follow HIPAA law. You're going to be accessing private health information of patients. If you somehow allow that information to escape, not only could you be charged, not only could you be sued by the patient for exposing their personal information, but you could be charged criminally, and you could go to jail for violating the HIPAA law. So make sure if you're going to get in the medical marijuana business, you're careful with that patient information, please. Medical is going to make, recreational is going to make medical look like a blip. For every one patient that's able to get a medical marijuana, you've got 1,000 patients who can get recreational marijuana. The recreational market is going to be 1,000 times bigger. So you think medical's big? Wait till recreational comes. That's going to be on December 7th, 2016. Pearl Harbor Day, 2016. The governor will affirm the vote from November, and adult use will be legalized in Massachusetts. Now, in getting ready for the recreational market, we need to do things like talk about what's the difference between the responsible use and the irresponsible use of marijuana recreationally. NORML did this in 1996. They said adults only, no driving, set and setting, meaning use the marijuana for the right purposes, when you're in the right mindset, when you're surrounded by the right people, and you're in the right place to do it. Okay? Now, do you want to use marijuana while your mother is criticizing you for not cleaning your room? No. I mean, do you want to use marijuana? You want to use marijuana basically when you're out in the woods with your buddies and nobody's going to be judging you. That's the way you avoid a bum trip. And you want to resist abuse. You don't want to be going out and spending the diaper money on the last diaper money on marijuana. You want to make sure that you're responsible. And then respecting the rights of others. It's the same with tobacco, right? You don't want to blow smoke into people's faces. There is such a thing as a bad trip with marijuana. It's called toxic psychosis. And if people use marijuana and they're newbies, or they use an awful lot, and they've never had much experience with it, they may freak out and get this toxic psychosis stuff. It's usually very temporary. Usually all you have to do is tell people, hey, look, just relax for a few hours, you'll be fine. But there are some people who have a genetic predisposal to schizophrenia. If some of these people with a predisposal to the schizophrenia use the psychotic marijuana, sometimes they don't come back. But that's because they have schizophrenia. It's not because they use marijuana. Addiction is a behavior. Substances and activities actually just reinforce the behavior. They do not cause the behavior. Okay? And users of marijuana certainly can develop unhealthy habits, as users of toothpaste can. All right? Believe it or not, there are people whose relationship with toothpaste is such that they cannot stop themselves from using toothpaste, even if it's to the detriment of their personal lives. The same is true for marijuana. It has nothing to do with the substance, the fact that it can be consumed. And it doesn't have to be consumable. It can be a behavior. It can be, for instance, gambling. But as far as addictivity of cannabis relative to other substances, marijuana is not really very addictive at all. In fact, it would be considered by most people as non-addictive. Then, its effect on driving. There's two issues. There's driving while stoned versus, well, getting stoned while driving. And these guys are getting stoned while driving. And no one would argue that that's safe. Okay? Because you've got to watch while you're passing the joint, or you might drop it onto your lap, and if you drop it on the lap, you freak out and you crash, right? But other than that, you're driving while you're stoned. There's lots of studies. There's lots of, you could study this for hours and hours, days and days, weeks and weeks. But the truth is that if you're drunk and you're on a multi-lane highway in the fast lane and you see your exit going by, you're going to swerve across 3 lanes of traffic and get off that goddamn exit no matter what. If you're stoned, you're going to say, screw it, I'm going to the next exit and turning around. That's why Colorado traffic fatalities in 2013 and 2014 are much lower than the average. See that? So, yeah, people in Colorado are getting stoned, but their driving is just fine. Now, this is the end of my slide, so I'm almost done. One of the biggest decisions, probably the biggest decision that a marijuana-related business is going to have to make is what their branding image is going to be. And just as an example, I love fooling around with this stuff. So I thought of the 4 most extreme branding images I could think of. And of course, one is the hippie image, right? Where all your employees are wearing paisley and John Lennon round glasses, and they all say, "Hey man, cool, yeah." And you've got a smiling hippie, and it's got bubble lettering, and maybe that's your appeal. Maybe it works. I don't know. Maybe you'll sell a lot of marijuana. Maybe. Or you might want to go with the doctor image, the medical thing. With block lettering, and everything's very formal, and he looks very straight, and he looks like a doctor. Or you might want to be the regular guy with scripty kind of lettering and casual Friday outfits on all your employees. So we're all just regular guys, huh? Or you might want to go upscale. You might want to be the Brooks Brothers of marijuana industry. And you might want to all be in 3-piece suits and have a logo that looks like this. Right? But the point here is we are going to bring the marijuana business into modern reality. Instead of being a street dealer who is picking his nose, scratching his ass, and then measuring out your medicine without gloves on, right? That's the way it is now. You got a problem with your drug dealer? He shorted you on a bag? What are you going to do about it? You're going to call the cops? Hey, this dealer shorted you on a bag, man. Think the cops care? Right. This is going to be totally different. Totally different. You're going to have display cases. You're going to have an employee area behind the counter. You're going to have inventory. You're going to have a color theme. You're going to have a safe floor that's not slippery. Right? You're going to have good lighting. You're going to have all those things that people expect in a real retail business. So, thank you all very much.